Days passed before the inhabitants of the castle began to return to their normal routines. Alban was functioning, but he wasn't fully himself again. That's how most of them were, except for Lorek and Sylvie. Belena had not exited her room yet, and Valden had been in the dungeons for hours, constantly training with whatever weapon he could find. Lorek had been the only one to leave while Sylvie took care of the place. Alban would go eat meals, but he didn't talk to anyone unless they asked. In his room, he would spend his entire time writing about his past with Valerie, and about their life together. He cleaned up his journaling from his most recent trip, anything he could do to preserve her memory. He never touched their bed. He merely slept on the floor, in the spot where he had found her many years ago. Sylvie would check on him now and then, but she never pried about going public. After a full week passed, Lorek arrived in Alban's room, his eyes bloodshot and his hair disheveled. "My king, it's Belena. We need your help." Alban looked up from his writing. "What's wrong, Lorek?" "Belena hasn't left her room all week. Not even to eat, not even for me. We need to do something." "Has Sylvie tried talking to her?" "Her door is locked. She also refuses to try breaking down the door. She said she wants to let Belena process her grief, but it's been too long. I'm worried about her." She was the closest to Valerie. "Are the others available?" "I haven't talked to Valden yet." "Let me. You go get Sylvie." Alban stood and closed his journal, patting Lorek on the shoulder. "Thank you, Lorek. You and Sylvie have been here for me in my worst moments. You're the perfect husband for Belena." With that, the two men split up to gather the family. Valden wiped the sweat from his brow and readied his sword just as Alban entered the basement. "Dad," he said as he took a few swings at the training dummy. There were a dozen of them cut up next to him, a result of his week of training. "Valden, I see you've been busy." Yes, I have. What else am I supposed to do around here? I don't want to stay locked up in my room all day. I have to do something." "Practice?" "Yes. Mom would have wanted me to." "Why do you think that?" Valden sighed as he sheathed his sword. "I never appreciated what Mom did for us. She put so much on herself into raising us. And look at how I thanked her. My whole life I tried running away. But when I finally learned to love my life here, she was taken away. I was a disappointment to her." Alban looked at his son and shook his head. "Valden, your mother loved you for who you were, not who she hoped for you to become. Her heart ached when you wanted to leave, but may I remind you that it was her decision to allow you to leave with Sylvie on your journey. She knew you had to live your own life, not one she picked out for you. You don't have to be anyone but yourself." Valden nodded, fighting back more tears. "She didn't expect anything from me? She only wanted you to be your best." He stared at the floor for a moment before looking up with renewed vigor. "Then I'm leaving soon. For a long time. I can't stay here any longer. I need to find some purpose in my life, something beyond the walls of the castle." Alban suddenly became defensive. "Valden, I know I have no right to stop you, but please reconsider. Vandan needs a capable ruler. I know that Belena is the heir to the throne, but in her current state, well, I don't think she's capable of handling this responsibility right now. And that means the crown will pass on to you." "But you're still the king, Dad, and Belena will do fine. She did well on her own in your absence. I don't have what it takes to be a king, and I don't think I want to be. The mention of his eldest daughter reminded Alban of his task, so we pushed aside this news for now. We will discuss this later. Right now, we need to help your sister. Belena hasn't left her room all week. Wait, what do you mean? Belena was the closest to your mother. She's probably taken it the worst, and her self-imposed isolation is only hurting her now. Right, well, let's go. And there's nothing else to talk about, Dad. I've already made up my mind. I really don't want to argue. Alban shook his head as he followed his son up the stairs and towards Belena's room. Traversing the castle without his wife's shoulder to ride on was a new experience for him. Sure, he'd explored the cavernous rooms when he first arrived many years ago with her, and he had to walk about when she was absent, but knowing he'd never have that support again hurt him like he never imagined it could. He pushed back that train of thought, knowing that dwelling on the past would do his children no good. After a long trip up the stairs, they turned the corner to find Sylvie holding Lorek while knocking on Belena's door. Belle, please, this isn't a healthy coping method. You need us by your side. Me, your sister, any one of us. Just let us in, please. Silence followed. But this didn't deter Sylvie.
Belena, I'll break down this door eventually. I know I promised not to, but I will. Do you remember that day when I fell down the stairs when I was 8? I hurt my arm so bad. I ran straight to my room and cried. And then you stood by the door and wouldn't leave until I let you in, so you could take care of me. I know this is very different, Belle, but it's not fair that I can't be here for you now.
She then noticed Alban and Valden approaching, and she hastily picked them up and deposited them, one on each shoulder. She gave a small nod to Alban, giving him the floor. Belena, it's your father. Please let us in. Your mother wouldn't have wanted you to cut yourself off over her. She'd want us to pull together, as a family.
You don't know that. None of us will ever know what she'd want right now because...
Silence fell again, and Sylvie's eyes were bright after hearing her sister's voice.
That's silly, Belena. You and I know her best, and you know she valued our relationships with each other more than anything. There were too many occasions to count where she was ready to give her life for any one of you, just as she did now. Don't let her sacrifice be in vain.
There was silence again. Sylvie was ready to pound on the door again when it suddenly opened. Belena stood there, bags under her reddened eyes, her hair disheveled, and her clothes dirty after wearing the same things for a week.
Come in,
she said, her voice raspy. Sylvie obeyed immediately and hopped next to her sister on the bed, hugging her side.
Belle, we're here for you. Don't close us off. I know it hurts, but we need to stick together. There's no point, Sylvie. She was everything to me. She was everything I wanted to be, and she understood me more than anyone else I ever knew. Even you, Lorek. I love you so much, but my mother, she knew me in a way you can't. I don't know how I can move on without that.
Neither do I, Belena, Alban replied. I know I've told the three of you this story many times, but it's just right for this occasion. When I met your mother, it wasn't love at first sight. I hated giants back then, as did all the people I knew. I couldn't imagine loving her, but she pursued me anyway. She rescued me and gave me a chance to love her back. She made me a better person, and then she made me a better father. Raising you three was not easy. Especially you, Sylvie. This got a small chuckle from Belena. But being parents united us, and we found a new reason to live beyond ourselves. We went from looking out for each other to looking out for our children. We still loved each other so much, but we both knew, deep down, that if it came to it, we would die for you. That doesn't make losing her easy at all. But I know that she gave her all into everyone she met. She extended that motherly love to the people of Rismark, making sure they were happy and their needs were met before she could take care of herself. If there's one thing she'd want you to do, Belena, it would be to care for the people like she did. Love them. Carry on her legacy. It's not going to be easy, heavens no. But together, we can honor her.
Dad.
Belena began bawling again and pulled her legs to her chest to hide her face. Sylvie rubbed her back and leaned on her head, waiting until she was ready to speak some more. She sniffled, wiped her eyes, cleared her throat, and then continued.
Dad, thank you. Sylvie, thank you. Valden, thank you. And of course, my beloved Lorek, thank you. I know it's going to be hard going forward, but with you all here with me, maybe it's possible to move on. We need to have a funeral. Let our people know sooner rather than later.
We should do it together, Belena, Alban said. That night, the wails of the people of Rismark could be heard in every room of the castle. People didn't believe the words of the royal family at first, but when Alban assured them that it was true, their emotions poured out. Some people took it worse than others, those who had known Valerie personally. Even those who were neutral about her, or might not have disliked her, found themselves moved to tears at the loss of their great queen. The sorrow and the songs of lament carried on throughout the night and well into the next day. The evening of the following day, the entire town gathered in the castle courtyard to hold a funeral for Valerie, with the children and Alban sitting in front of the crowd to hear whatever anyone had to share about their departed queen. Belena was in shock at the vast amount of people who showed up to honor her mother's sacrifice. People from Alban had come, as well as the entire town of Rismark, and even some of the people her father had mentioned were there. King Farron, Captain Claymore, and Luke. Belena was overjoyed to see Aurelie and her family among the crowd, as well as Rhett and Nut, the two boys Valden had befriended in the mountains. Alenia, an old friend of her mother's, was the first to step forward, and Belena carefully lifted her up to hear what she had to share. The small woman curtsied before she began her speech.
My beloved princess, prince, and king, the loss of Queen Valerie, it's the most terrible news one could ever hear. I first met her long before you children were born, back when I had a bit more spring in my step. She encouraged me to be myself in Rismark, and she poured her time into making sure I would live a happy life here. Although she is gone, I know that her memory will live on in the sick that I heal.
Belena smiled and thanked her before she set her down again. Lorek's father, Orlok, was up next, but he had much less to say. The queen was a good person. I wish I'd have been able to apologize to her personally. Belena thanked him and gave him a small kiss on his head. Of course, a small kiss from her drenched his hair, but he allowed it given the circumstances. Arlie came next, and Belena brought her closer to see her family. She had met Riker, her husband, once before, but she had never met Arlie's new baby.
Belena, I'm sorry you're meeting Bella like this. I named her after you, of course. But I hope you know that you have our full support. Your mom was extremely special to both of us,
though Riker won't admit as much.
So, if you ever need us to move in, keep you company again, I'd be glad to.
Arlie, I wouldn't miss having you back for the world. Of course. I have Lorek now to keep me company, but your support is the best thing I could ever have.
The two friends embraced, and Riker awkwardly trying to show support. And then she set her down. The entire evening carried on this way for hours, and soon Sylvie began to lift people up as well. Eventually, when the entire crowd had shared something, Alban stood to address everyone. Good people of Rismark, Liston, Elgon, and the Cairnoain Mountains. To see so many people show up to honor the memory of my wife warms my heart. I've tried to be the best king I could be for all of you, but deep down, we all know that Valerie held us together. We can carry on in her absence, but it will not be easy. We need to love each other like she loved us. Give to those who need it, heal those who are sick, and give a home to those who have none. That's the world Valerie wanted to build. She hated the reputation the giants before her built. So let's make sure her dream will be accomplished. Hurrahs and cheers followed, but they halted when he held up his hand. As much as this pains me, I must also share this. I didn't want to burden you all with this news while Valerie's death is still so fresh for all of us. But I also know that I can't wait any longer. From this moment forward, I will no longer be your king. I am abdicating to pursue a life where I can honor Valerie with my writings. I will leave the crown to one of my children, whomever is most prepared to take on the responsibility of being your next ruler. That is all. There were cries again, and Alban could feel his children staring at him in shock. Without another word, he turned around and entered the castle, leaving the crowd behind him with his decision.